Seeing those children, their faces, knowing that without Hopeful Hearts they may not have food, medicine, basic necessities that we take for granted every day.
And people say, you know, why are you spending money on these kids? And it's like, well, why wouldn't you? I mean, we're all God's children just because we live in a different place. I mean, would you not go across the street to help your neighbor? I mean, why wouldn't we go across the pond to help a child that has no future?
We had been to Gagarina Orphanage in Simferopol. Beds and mattresses were absolutely horrible. Beds were 25, 30 years old, had been used by only God knows how many children. And we talked about the possibility of replacing those horrible beds. The mattresses were stained and dirty, hardly more than maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick. Turns out we probably need somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000. So at that point, the board felt that we should not go out on a limb and take that on. So we agreed to table it until the next meeting. That was on Tuesday night. Thursday, my phone rang, and there was a gentleman on the other end of the line, and he said, you know, I really like what you all do. But he said, this is my wife's and my 25th wedding anniversary, and we have some appreciated stock that we would like to donate to Hopeful Hearts. Turns out it was about $27,000, almost to the penny what we needed. And we embarked on getting those beds and mattresses replaced.
We were there for the first time. When we took the group of 14, it was the first time Hopeful Hearts Board had actually ever gone in this orphanage. We went into their sleeping rooms, and once again the odor was just overwhelming. And they had taken some of the old beds from the orphanage in Simferopol that we had replaced. Theirs were so bad that they took the old ones that we thought were bad and got rid of. So we were looking at those beds, and we flipped the mattresses back. There was about 3 or 4 of us that flipped a mattress back, and when we did, we just let go of it. They were soaking wet, where they just wet the bed and wet the bed and wet the bed. The next morning, one of the ladies that was on the trip, she said, I could hardly lay in my bed last night for thinking about those little children crawling into those cold, wet, nasty beds. We've got a lot of work for us there.
In the orphanages that we are in now, the children actually look pretty good. They all look healthy. In Yolichka, they have a beautiful therapy room that Hopeful Hearts helped with.
The other thing that I think has made a tremendous difference is that people see that we actually do what we say we're going to do, and the money gets to the kids.
We saw some of the same children that we saw on the mission trip that when we went back to adopt a 1.5 years later, saw some of the same children. They were healthy, they were happy, they were smiling, they were clean, in nice clothes, and playing, and I knew that Hopeful Hearts had helped that child.
The director of the baby house at Yolichka told us that for the very first time, he's able to do medical testing. Up to this point, it's been medicate them when they're sick, do the testing to find out what's wrong. Now it's to the extent of doing preventive medicine.
Just their social interaction improves so much because they're around the other kids when they're playing. They have all the new playground equipment also that Hopeful Hearts has provided, and they're just playing like normal kids now. Where before they were just all alone all the time. They were not interacting with each other. They weren't really interacting with the caregivers, but now they're excited and happy and they're joyful.
We delivered blessing bags that people all over this city and country, for that matter, prepared. They went shopping with their children and their grandchildren.
There was a little girl at Stroganovka. She was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and she was one of those little kids that just have a zest for life, you can tell. And she would pull out a toothbrush, and she would show it to me, and her little eyes would just sparkle, and she'd run to the caregiver and show it to her. She did every item in the bag that way. Well, the first thing I knew, it was empty. The next thing I knew, she had packed it all back in the bag. And we went through the whole procedure again. She pulled it out one thing at a time, and we went through the whole thing again. The caregiver in her room came to me and tapped me on the shoulder, and through the translator, she said, I've been here 14 years. And she said, I've never seen such gifts come into this place as you've brought in here today. She said, today, you all are magic workers.
I was there in September of this past year, and I am seeing us at a critical stage in the life cycle of Hopeful Hearts. I feel like we have done a very good job of meeting the basic needs. When we first arrived in the Ukraine, conditions were so poor, kids didn't really have a good shot of living through the winter. Something as basic as just a cold could turn into pneumonia. They didn't have the antibiotics. And now when we arrive, the kids are healthy. Doesn't matter what time of year. They're well clothed. And so I think we've done a good job there. But I believe we're to a point now where we need to focus on really breaking the cycle.
You know, once they come 17, they're just basically dumped out on the street to survive.
Life expectancy in the Ukraine for over 70% of them is 22, 23 years old. You know, and that's not life, that's an existence expectancy, not a life expectancy. We're not going to ever turn our back on the children that are left in the orphanage. But I see us shifting our focus to those kids that are that last year in the orphanage and getting ready to come out, to really begin to put our focus and our efforts on that group of people, because that's our last chance with them.
Right now the cards are stacked against them, and we want to change that. We want them to have the same opportunities that a normal child would have in their country.
The thing that I think is the most exciting about the transition home is we're going to be able to take them in to a Christian environment and give them way more hope than for just a future.
Being able to continue to help those children that will not be adopted is very important.
4 or 5 years from now, I hope I see a young lady who has a Bible and treasures it, who is an active member of a church in Simferopol, who is ready to embark on a life that she could have only dreamed of 5 years before, who now knows how to love and be loved, who knows how to have a family. And if there's just one, we will have been a success.